Hello everybody and welcome back to the show. The Atheist Experience is live November 24th, 2002. I'm Martin Wagner, your host. Ashley Perrien, my co-host, and thank you for tuning in on this lovely Sunday afternoon. It's been a crazy week, and we have quite a bit to talk about today, so this is going to be a fun show. I'll just go ahead and get opening announcements out of the way first, of course. ACA meets every week, Sunday morning, 10:30 a.m. at Hot Jumbo Bagels, 307 West 5th Street, between Guadalupe and Lavaca, except for the first Sunday of each month when we have our lecture series in the Longhorn Room of First Cafeteria, North Cross Mall. Now, next Sunday, being the 1st of December, is the first Sunday of the month, but we are going to First, but we're not going to have a lecture.
Yes.
We are just going to, we're going to talk about our building plans.
Yes.
I think so, and we're going to have a big group powwow about that and decide, everybody's going to decide.
Yep. What do we want in the building?
Or at least
stuff like that.
Decide if we want to decide. I mean, if we want to.
Do we want a building, and if so, what kind of building, and blah, blah, blah.
So that's going to happen. So if you want to be, group members, you want to be part of that, that's a big important discussion. Please come and eat first food and talk to us. Okay, Godless Gamers meets Monday nights, 7 o'clock p.m. at the home of Russell and Virginia Glasser, and Atheist Happy Hour takes place 7:30-ish, 8-ish p.m. at Antonio's Tex-Mex on Thursday evenings, and that's located near the intersection of I-35 and Highway 183. People trickle in all night, so you get there early, don't see anybody, just hang loose, because people, like I said, trickle in. The Non-Prophets is our internet radio show, hosted by Jeff D., and which can be heard every Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock p.m. at the atheistnetwork.com website. There it is right there. It's a live program. They don't have call-in, but they have an ongoing chat room feature that you can participate in the show. It's 90 minutes of news analysis and just yelling and screaming, and it's all kinds of fun. So tune into that. Saturday afternoons, 2 o'clock p.m., the Non-Prophets with Jeff D. The University Atheists and Agnostics are a UT student organization started up by our very own Charles Tabany, and they have Friday afternoon meetings, 4 o'clock p.m. in room 310 Parlin. If you're a UT student or faculty member, there is finally a group for you. It hasn't been one for as long as I can remember, and Charles got one going. It's very successful, as I understand. So Friday afternoons, 4 p.m., Parlin 310 are their meetings. Okay, for more information about the Atheist Community of Austin, you can visit our lovely website at atheist-community.org. So again, thanks for joining our show. It's been a beautiful week, actually, all week, not just the weekend. It's been really gorgeous weather, very sunny weather.
I hear it's supposed to end tonight,
but it's something about this week. I don't know, was it a full moon or something? Some sort of lunacy going on all over the world. We've had, let me see, first we had the riots in Nigeria over the Miss World pageant.
Okay, which I missed that completely.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I have no clue what you're talking about.
Oh, good grief. Oh, this. Well, it's not funny, actually. It's pretty grim, but it just goes to show, these people need to, decaf or something. Miss World pageant was going to be, I don't know if this was like the actual pageant or was this the tryouts or something. I think it's the actual pageant. It's tryouts. Okay, tryouts for Miss World pageant in Nigeria, of all places. Now that's a heavily Muslim area.
Yeah.
Some indelicate newspaper columnist made the crack, right, that, not only would Muhammad approve of the Miss World pageant, but he would probably pick a bride among the contestants. And people just went
completely berserk.
Yeah, and the resulting riots that last I've heard have killed in excess of 100 people. So, guess they can't take a joke too well over there about that.
Yeah, I need to relax.
So that's pretty horrible, and it's to the extent now that they're moving these tryouts just the hell out of Nigeria. They don't want any part of this powder keg anymore. So people have just went absolutely nuts. Now I can understand. All right, look, okay, if you have this devout religious belief, and you might take offense to what you perceive as being a rather blasphemous joke, but good grief.
Do a letter to the editor.
Yeah, something like that. But what we have is just it's reminiscent of, I hate to say this, but there's the headline on the Landover Baptist Church website. Muslims protest being called violent by rioting. And I don't know. It just seems like those parts of the world, it's like it doesn't take much to set them off.
Yeah.
Although I guess, if you were to ask them, they probably would say that, no, that was quite a lot, and a very bad thing to say. But riots that kill 100 people? So, Can't really justify
Yeah.
that. And we've also had this goofy campaign this week in our country. This Christian minister, who's also an environmentalist, has launched this big anti-SUV advertising campaign, which the tagline is, "What would Jesus drive?" So he's trying to give like this moral argument, or based on Christian moral argument, that SUVs, all these gas-guzzling cars, are poisoning our planet, and that's really bad. And Jesus, as Christians, we're supposed to be like stewards of the planet, and we shouldn't poison the planet with fumes, right? And they cause all this horrible global warming. And so Jesus wouldn't drive an SUV, so you shouldn't either, okay? And that's like the argument that he's trying to make. Now, immediately...
SUVs are the unholy spawn of Satan or something?
Now this is immediately met with ridicule, right? Even from Christian circles. And because the whole guy's premise was completely torpedoed by one commentator somewhere who said, well, I don't know, maybe Jesus would drive an SUV. Like, for example, he could pack all his disciples into it. And one vehicle
all their gear,
yeah, one vehicle with 12 guys is a lot more environmentally sound than 12 vehicles, right? So much for that. So it's completely stupid. But see, here's the thing. Of course there are very sound scientific reasons why we need to be careful about our fossil fuel consumption.
Of course.
The increase in greenhouse gases, climatic change. Whether you believe that the current climatic change, the global warming, is the result of like man-made activity or not, and I think that the general scientific consensus is that it is. And there's some people on the far right are still holding out and saying no, it's just But the fact is that it's in our control to change it.
Yeah.
Okay. To
at least change
curtail
our behavior.
Yeah, it's in our control. Whether it's the El Nino or something.
Yeah.
It is in our power now we can at least curtail any worse climatic change we can make.
Exactly.
And there are sound scientific reasons for that.
Yeah.
You don't need to go on and argue. Well,
what would Jesus?
What would our your imaginary friend drive? That's kind of like. But I don't. But then again, I guess to maybe that would be an argument that would reach that would say something to a Christian.
A very small segment of the population.
Although it's not, right? Because most Christians are goofing on they're joking on this already, and you found that
anyone who's got enough money to buy an SUV probably isn't going to be swayed by an argument like that.
Right, and you also found, right, that among religious people, okay, they will accept arguments based upon their own religion that pertain to modifying their own behaviors.
Yeah.
Until it infringes upon something that they really want to do.
Exactly.
And then they'll go and then they'll go ahead and they'll do it anyway.
Exactly.
And they'll say, well, Jesus wouldn't mind this. So it's just completely dumb because this guy can say all he likes. Jesus doesn't want you to drive an SUV, and the guy says, well, yes, he would. And you have this whole angels on the head of a pin argument going back and forth, and the planet's still heating up. No one's getting anywhere. So, but it was just funny. I mean, it was just really this was like the big joke news article all week, and it's not going to go anywhere. But it's just right out of left field. I mean, it's just so a bizarre week this week in terms of just weird religious related stuff happening. Well, what have you got? Because it doesn't end there, does it?
Not at all. And actually, this one began quite a while ago. Mm-hmm. This one, and most people have heard about this, or at least references to it, a while ago. In August 2001, Chief Justice in Alabama, Roy Moore, put up, and you want to go down really quickly, put up this in the rotunda of his capital, of his, I think it's the Supreme Court.
Alabama. What's the Capitol building of the state of Alabama?
Okay, Capitol building in Alabama.
But it's not an endorsement of religion.
No. And he put this big old monument up. See, it's got the 10 Commandments on top.
Right. What's that behind it there?
That's a little waterfall.
Oh, that's behind
it. Like water going down the stairs,
Yeah, right.
That's far behind it. And they have down there a whole bunch of quotes written on it, stuff like that. But this is what he had put up.
That's a 2.5-ton monument.
It is a 2.5-ton granite monument.
It's in the Alabama State Judicial Building.
Yes.
So yeah, that would be where his offices were.
He put that up.
Okay.
Now then, he is one of 9.
Specifically, he snuck it into the building.
That's what I'm getting.
Yeah, he snuck it in.
He is one of 9 justices.
Yeah.
He did not tell the other 8 about this.
Right.
He did not get their approval. He is the only one who had any say in the rotunda or the design of this monument. Mm-hmm. Now, on the night of August 1st, I think it was,
Where were you on the night?
I know.
I was sneaking into the Alabama.
He snuck into the Alabama building with this thing.
Get 20 guys.
Towing it behind his SUV. And he put this in.
Wow.
Now,
well, I mean, there's a crew, but I mean, it
yes,
was his doing.
Of course, it was his doing and only his doing.
Well, no, hang on.
They
he had help. He had financial aid, and he had
financial aid.
Support from
Choral Ministries.
Yeah, D. James Kennedy's gang, right?
I guess so. I'm not sure about that.
Right.
But they are a news outlet, a very strictly Christian news outlet in Alabama, and they do broadcasts pretty much all over the state to the main cities. They were the only ones that were allowed to film this. So he brought them in. They raised the money. They helped raise the money for this monument. They were the only ones allowed to film it. Now then, after it's put up, they knew this was going to be challenged. And so they raised money by selling the tapes and by advertising that they are a church and they're supporting him, raising money for his defense.
So it's kind of,
So it's
kind of knew that they were going to get challenged, didn't they then?
Exactly. So if you go out and do some crime and videotape it, sell the videotapes on the internet, and then when you're brought to court, use the money from the videotapes to defend yourself. A hair on the unethical side, but okay.
It's a good thing OJ didn't think of it. Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that.
So anyway, they're the ones who put it up and filmed it. They got the money and they defended him.
Did it work?
Not really.
Oh, well, darn.
The ruling came back this week, and they have decided that, nope, it's got to come down. They have decided that it is so completely unconstitutional that it's barely beyond funny. Just barely. There were, the ruling is a full 78 pages worth. It's a hefty read.
So,
but
curl up and get your bag of chips and let's go. No,
but it's a very interesting read. They do explain a lot of this very well because they have a lot of cases going on. And yes, down there, we don't know but yes, you could see almd.uscourts.gov/opinions. You can actually download the ruling, the full PDF or document ruling and stuff like that.
Glassroth versus Moore.
Yes, Glassroth is one of the lawyers.
Okay.
That is actually suing him.
And who's he with? Is he with the ACLU? Is he with Americans United?
I don't think the ACLU is actually in this to any great extent, yeah. They're not actually doing anything.
Dogpile something like this, usually. So they would. I know that Americans United, Americans United, I'm sure had I've heard the groups involved in challenging him. Now, but okay. All right. Anyway, keep going.
He's a lawyer filing for himself.
Right. Okay.
So, but anyway, most of the court ruling was very good. There's a couple things that we had contention with, but again, and one of them's right on the second page. The court believes that it is important to clarify the outset that the court does not hold that it is improper in all instances to display 10 Commandments in government buildings, nor does the court hold that the 10 Commandments are not important, if not one of the most important sources of American law.
Well, they're not going to come out and say 10 Commandments are a load of crap and they shouldn't be in the,
True,
right? I mean,
but saying that it is possibly one of the most important sources of American law.
Well, okay.
Is questionable.
Well,
in the extreme.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, though. I mean, the 10 Commandments, right, is one set of moral precepts, from antiquity.
Yes.
That all. I mean, everything sort of, influenced one another, right? I mean, civilization sort of. We had from the earliest, from the Fertile Crescent, you had the Code of Hammurabi, which influenced what became. The laws of Rome, and well, maybe that didn't influence Rome, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, the 10 Commandments had its precursors. Code of Hammurabi actually. But then, as civilization grew, right? I mean, moral precepts and laws came about over the centuries, and the 10 Commandments were just part of that process.
Another one of them.
So, but it can't be singled out as the one or the most important one.
Yeah.
You know, except maybe if you want to make the argument that because the Christian faith is, or the Judeo-Christian faith is the dominant faith in America, you know, it sort of wins by default in that regard. But there are, but still, you would have to look at the historical antecedents to the Ten Commandments.
And they even go into detail here, which is why I don't necessarily have all that much of an issue with displaying 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
Because there are other displays in other courthouses where it shows the 10 Commandments and Hammurabi and the Bill of Rights
Magna Carta,
and Magna Carta and all these other documents.
Right, but...
And so if it's one among many like that, it's not saying, you know, look at this big one, you know, this is the right one, and all these other ones don't really count all that much.
But that's what George Roy Moore was doing, right? He had his...
Yes.
You know.
He had his one big document, and that's all it is.
Yeah, and so there was no statue of Buddha, you know, fat, happy Buddha sitting anywhere nearby. There was no, no big plaque with anything out of Dianetics, you know, pinned to the wall nearby. I mean,
he wasn't just saying that this is an important part of American law. And so, you know, read it and, hey, get up to speed. It's cool.
Right.
If all Chief Justice Moore had done was to emphasize the Ten Commandments' historical and educational importance, or their importance as a model code for good citizenship, this court would have a much different case before it. But the Chief Justice did not limit himself to this. He went far, far beyond. This is the actual ruling. He installed a 2.5-ton monument in the most prominent place of a government building, managed with dollars from all state taxpayers, with the specific purpose and effect of establishing a permanent recognition of the sovereignty of God, that the Judeo-Christian God, over all citizens in this country, regardless of each tax-paying citizen's individual personal beliefs or lack thereof. To this, the Establishment Clause says no.
Right on.
Hell no.
Yeah.
And so they...
And he makes no bones about doing that. Those are his reasons, and he doesn't pretend they aren't his reasons.
Any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
During his speech, when he actually brought this in, you know, in the dead of night, you know, in like night vision goggles and stuff.
See a bunch of guys sneaking. Okay, it's clear. Let's go. Sneak the thing in.
A couple things that he had to say on that unveiling ceremony. By the authority vested in me by the Constitution of the State of Alabama as Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court, I'm pleased to present this monument depicting the moral foundation of our law and hereby authorize it to be placed in the rotunda of the Alabama Judicial Building. Now again, Chief Justice Roy Moore is the only one who had any say in this monument. Yeah. He is the only one who had anything to say about what goes in the rotunda. He stopped many other monuments and many other documents being placed in there. There were several other people that asked them. I think Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream. Somebody wanted to put up a plaque with that one on it. And he said, no, that's the word of man, not of God. And so...
where does his bias lie?
An atheist group wanted to have a monument put up with the atheist symbol, which is like, you know, kind of like the nuclear atom type thing. Yeah. And he said, no, that's not going to keep with the, you know, the whole look and feel of our rotunda. So, nope, ditch it. But what else did he say? This monument will serve to remind the appellate courts and judges of the truth stated in the preamble of the Alabama Constitution, that in order to establish justice, one must invoke the favor and guidance of Almighty God.
Oh, just kind of like they did on September 11th.
Yep.
Okay.
The institutions of our society are founded on the belief that there is an authority higher than the authority of the state, that there is a moral law which the state is powerless to alter. This is all...
Well, no.
This is all said in the Chief Justice hat. This is not on his front lawn.
Well, for one thing, we are not powerless to alter laws in this country. That's why we have things like voting, and that's why we have a system of courts in the first place, to where you set precedents. Yeah. Okay, and legal precedents, and that's how laws, you know, adapt and evolve and change. Yeah. But I don't know that there's anything in the Constitution that says, you know, that expresses a belief in a higher moral authority, and in fact, there isn't, because I can, you know, read it right here. Okay.
This has been read over many times.
Here's what the U.S. Constitution says about who has authority in this country. Okay. Which is, we'll just say, get on thing. We the people of the United States. It says, okay, that's the preamble. Provide for the common and secure the blessings of liberty. We the people of the United States, secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. For the purposes of doing that, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. We the people of the United States. Secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Therefore, we do it. So it's the people. The power is in the hands of the people. The people are the source of what laws it is, and the decisions that we make through voting, through being part of the political process. It's we the people are the authority in the United States, not some big invisible magic man. Okay, and the only thing that the Constitution of the United States has to say about religion involves prohibitions. Okay, no religious test for public office. Government cannot endorse a religion. Government cannot prevent citizens from practicing whatever religion they want. That kind of thing. So,
well, that's your opinion.
I guess so. Yeah, I'm not a Chief Justice. So what do I know, right?
Yes, according to Chief Justice Roy Moore.
I just read the Constitution.
Yeah. According to Chief Justice Roy Moore, separation of church and state is actually a biblical concept. According to him,
does he cite a scripture for this?
He does not give specific scripture, but it is his interpretation.
Yeah.
That it is.
Oh, yeah.
Now, what he pictures is church and state are separate. Now, his definition of church is the physical structure and the processes that it goes through, stuff like that. It's not the teachings.
Okay.
It's the organization. So, church, meaning the one with the steeple, and the state,
an actual organized
flag,
an actual organized
separate.
Body.
Yes,
like
they are separate.
Okay. Right.
But they're both overseen by God.
Okay.
So God can have his fingers in everything.
Of course.
And does. But those two things will be separate. And he did actually quote a lot of the Bible.
So for him, so he's taking this literalist interpretation of separation of church and state, which I think is an important distinction to make, because I remember I've reading some essays recently where by some atheists saying that I think that the more important issue that we need to focus on, right, not so much the separation of church and state, because those can be really vague terms. Church, state, those are very broad concepts, and into which a guy like Roy Moore clearly can plug his own interpretations. Whereas I think that the key issue is separation of religion from government.
Yeah.
At least that's what we mean. When we say separation of church and state, is separation of religion from government. Government shouldn't stick its nose in religion. Religion shouldn't be influencing government. When it does, you get Afghanistan. You get all these horrible oppressive regimes that we've been fighting against. Yeah. So that's what civil libertarians and free thinkers mean when we talk about separation of church and state. And so maybe we shouldn't be using that term anymore. Maybe we need to be more direct in our speech and say separation of religion from government when we are arguing these cases.
Okay.
I mean...
So again, let's go back to Justice Roy Moore.
All right. Well, what do he say?
At the trial, the Chief Justice reiterated his belief that only Christianity meets the First Amendment definition of religion, and repeatedly called all other creed a faith rather than a religion.
Okay, now let's...
Christianity is the only religion, according to Chief Justice Roy Moore. Everything else is a faith.
Okay, see, so now right there, he's determining, he is presuming he's telling everyone out there in Alabama who is a Jew, who is a Buddhist, who is a Wiccan, who is Unitarian Universalist, who is whatever's left.
Less than.
Well, their religions aren't really religions. They're just faiths. Yeah. Christianity only qualifies as a religion, and therefore is deserving of special dispensation. It's better.
Yeah.
Christianity, that's him saying my religion is better than yours.
Yes.
Yours isn't. In fact, yours doesn't even deserve to be called religion.
Yep.
That's how much better mine is than yours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Just when I think that here's some fundamentalists say the most arrogant, offensive, and shamelessly insulting thing that they could possibly say, they keep talking.
They come up with something else.
Yeah. That's just amazing.
And going on.
Now, where does it say that he has the right? Where in his job description does it say you have the right to tell the citizens of your state, whether or not their belief system is a religion?
Yeah.
Where is he given that authority in the state of Alabama laws? I'd like to know that.
Luckily, the court again, kind of laughed at him.
No.
The court cannot accept the Chief Justice's proposed definition of the word religion because it is, simply put, incorrect and religiously offensive. The court cannot accept a definition of religion that does not acknowledge Buddhism or Islam as a religion under the First Amendment, and would in fact directly violate Supreme Court precedent by doing so.
Man.
They came down on him pretty hard on several points in here. Another one. Under the Chief Justice's view, the Judeo-Christian God is the real and even divine source for the separation of church and state under the First Amendment. As such, that God, or the belief in that God, cannot be separated from the state, and must not be separated from the state, lest we lose our freedom of connection to worship as we choose. The church as an entity is all that must be separated from the state.
Okay, so what he's doing, is he's saying God created separation of church and state, so you can't separate God from the state because he created both. He created church and state and created the separation.
Yeah.
So he's just...
So he's got his fingers in absolutely everything.
So he's just redefined all of this terminology so as to place God at the center of everything, so to where God gets away with it all.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
The guy's got balls.
Yeah, well, I think they got squeezed pretty hard by the Supreme Court, and
Yeah.
So what else did they say? First off, apparently we do have some. He did quote some scripture. What are the pages?
Yeah.
From the,
it was back here.
48.
As Chief Justice explained in trial, relying on a large measure in his dissenting opinion, and blah blah blah. The separation of church and state is most vividly illustrated by the Old Testament nation of Israel, where institutional lines were drawn so clearly that the chief of the state, the king, could not even come from the same family or tribe as the chief ecclesiastical officer, the high priest.
Okay, well, fine, but so what? That was
he drew from the Bible.
That was then. This is now. Okay,
Yeah.
There were a lot of really other horrible laws.
Yeah.
And that was a good law. There were good laws. There were bad laws. But a lot of stuff being done 2,000 years ago that aren't being done today. And we shouldn't use those standards.
Yeah.
We need to look at the situation we're in now. We have this vast pluralistic society of people of many different creeds as well as no creed.
This is many years
The battle
later.
has to do with what is the fairest
Yeah.
for the body politic, right? And the founding fathers figured it out, right? It's let the people decide about private matters like say religion.
Yeah.
The government shouldn't be out there dictating. As Judge Roy Moore is trying to do, your religion's a religion, but yours isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Insane.
I love, again, I don't know if this guy should even be working or outside of a mental institute.
The monster truck show.
In the Chief Justice's view, it is the Judeo-Christian God who gives Americans the freedom of conscience to believe in whatever faith they choose. Americans are free to worship other gods only because the Judeo-Christian God and the Judeo-Christian God alone allows for freedom of conscience. Because all other gods, in the Chief Justice's view, and only his view, do not allow for freedom of conscience. We, as Americans, would not have such freedom if another God were placed over the church and state under our governmental framework.
Okay, just setting aside the fact that there is an implicit comment in that statement that Judge Roy Moore seems to think that these other gods exist too, but his is just the best, right?
Yeah.
Although I'm sure that's not what he means. But that's just crazy. Okay, this whole idea, God gives you, this is back to the whole, God gives you a choice thing, right, that we've heard before.
I know.
But it's this wonderful choice between
God lets you worship another God. He'll burn you for all eternity, but go ahead.
You get tortured forever. If he gives you a choice, now there's only one right choice to make, and if you make the wrong choice, you get tortured forever, but God still gives you the choice, and that's fair. Where do these people get their definitions from? This is this wonky, bizarro, backwards idea.
And the fact that he's saying all of this in a court of law.
Yeah, the guy is a theocrat and a demagogue. He's
psycho.
He's Mullah Omar, right? And he is the antithesis of what a free country is all about.
Yeah.
The antithesis of what it's about.
Yep.
And the thing, and they're getting bolder. People, they're becoming more and more emboldened by, for Bush's inexplicable popularity, And of course, well, and the fact that Democrats are, morons and they can't seem to get their act together. And so we have, a very conservative tide in the country right now, and the theocrats are thinking it's our time.
Yeah.
So that's why you have this kind of thing coming on. This is why you have all of the, these attempts to attack education, and try to, replace science with religion in the public schools. And they're becoming emboldened. Fortunately, in this instance, they've been stood up to, and they need to keep being stood up to.
Yeah.
So,
and also to go on really quickly, they went into the standing issue. When you go to court, you must be injured in some way.
Oh yes, okay.
To have a case.
Yeah.
If nobody's hurt, you can't go to court. Now the lawyers who had brought this up, most of them, it was more than one. I think there were 3 of them who were actually brought to court. Yeah. They had problems with him in the past.
Yeah.
They said outright, look, he's running as the 10 Commandments judge. This is kind of stupid, people. Things that he had done. He had always opened his courtroom with a prayer and stuff like that. He had 10 Commandments in his courtroom.
Yeah.
They didn't agree with any of this.
I mean, now this is a guy, one of his more infamous rulings, right? Just to give an idea of how he allows his religious ideology to interfere with, his adjudication. Okay, is there was a case where there was a divorce. The woman had actually gone out to the left coast, and now she was in a lesbian relationship.
Yeah.
Okay, the mother was, and the father was back home, and so there was this kid, to deal with, custody battle, right? And now the father had a history of abuse.
Yes.
Okay, but Judge Roy Moore, awarded the kid to the abusive dad because, in his view, homosexuality is an evil sin.
Yep.
And so the mom,
homosexuality
even though
is
she
worse
was
than beating your child.
She was the abusee.
Yeah.
Didn't get the kid, because of, his ideological, hatred of homosexuality based on his Christian fundamentalism. And so that caused a major stink. Yeah. And I'm not even sure how that got resolved, or if it got resolved, or if it's being appealed or what have you. I mean, I would assume that it was appealed immediately, but that's everything to research and see if that's come of anything. But just to get an idea, the guy does not even pretend not to let his religious ideology interfere with the supposed impartiality he has to have as an adjudicator.
Yeah. But again, going back to the standing issue, which we were on a minute ago.
Yep. Sorry.
Again, he had said, these previous, judges had said, look, things are not going well here. He's making some bad decisions. We don't like how he's handling business.
Right.
And so he said that they don't have standing because since they had been hurt before by him, they can't be hurt again. You were hurt previously. You're still in the effect of being hurt. Therefore, this one doesn't count.
Okay. So if I sock you in the jaw right now,
and
then I do it again,
tomorrow, and then you do it again tomorrow,
or I do it again right away.
Since it's still hurt.
Yeah. The second one you don't feel it.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, you don't feel the second one because you're still hurting from the one yesterday.
Yeah. And also,
let's try that. No.
Visual demonstration.
Sorry, I promise I wouldn't use your head for a prop anymore. Okay.
See how long that lasts?
Too many? Yeah. Right. Okay.
And another thing, another reason that they don't have standing, according to him.
Okay.
These were lawyers. They were pretty powerful in their community.
And everybody hates lawyers.
They're big, strong people.
Right.
And so since they're big and strong, they should, essentially his argument was, suck it up.
Good, rise above it.
Yeah, you're strong people. You can deal with it. Get over it. And so, again, luckily the courts came back and said,
no, you get over it.
Yeah, exactly. You get over it.
Yeah. Here's our ruling.
This fact reflects that the plaintiffs are among the few, if not the only attorneys, who have the commendable courage to sue a judge or justice to seek personal redress under the First Amendment for the harm they have suffered and continue to suffer. Standing is not the sole province of the weak. If anything, as a matter of practice, if not the law, it is that of the strong, for only they will rise to assert it.
Way to go, Cory.
That was good.
That's eloquent. That's beautiful.
I know.
Yeah.
Standing is not the sole province of the weak.
Yeah.
That's good. Because, the weak very often will not. Well, that's
why they're weak, because they won't. Yeah.
Exactly.
Like All right.
My boy.
Get it later. You can. I'll buy you another one. I promise. Yeah. All right. Yeah. No, that's really, yeah. Oh, and that's why they're weak, right? Because they don't stand up. But
it was, like I say, it was a full 78
But those lawyers, right? I mean, were they just representing themselves, or again, were they part of these organizations or groups, or were they saying on behalf of so-and-so? I mean,
from my understanding and everything I've read, there is nothing to do with ACLU or American Judeo, anything like that. They were not involved in this case at all, which is kind of surprising.
Yeah, but then maybe it's good, right? Maybe it's good, okay, because let's say if it had been the ACLU, right? Judge Roy Moore could have won just some cheap sympathy vote by saying, "Oh, look, it's those evil liberals after me again," and he could have, conservatives love to dash out the L word, whenever somebody who, if they can come out with that easy sort of ad hominem attack.
Exactly.
And so if the ACLU kind of backed away from this one and allowed these individuals as citizens to file this suit, then maybe that was a good strategic move. Oh.
Yeah.
But then, what do I know?
So again, it was a 78-page ruling, but it was as court rulings go.
Yeah,
a page turn.
Now he's now he's appealing.
Yes,
and so we'll see how that goes, and he'll probably he's going to take it right to the U.S. Supreme Court. I betcha.
Yeah, if he's got a choice in it.
Point of pride. Well, unless if the appellate court, well, I mean, but you can, right? I mean, you can keep going, but the Supreme Court might choose not to hear it. But
they have basically told him that actually the people who were suing demanded, asked for an injunction to get it removed immediately.
Yeah.
Now
they gave him 30 days.
Well, the court said that it's unconstitutional. Please take it down in 30 days. If he doesn't do it within 30 days, then they will, issue an injunction to get it down within 15.
Okay.
So he's got 15
Well, now he's
days,
already saying he's not. So, but they're basically saying, take it down within a month, or we'll
or we'll force you to
bring a, just a little crane in and do it ourselves. So that could be fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
See if the old D. James Kennedy videotapes that, and here it's coming out. Get the 2-part video set. It goes in, it comes out. Isn't this a great country?
Slam. It's a very good ruling. It's like I say, it's got a lot of really good points in there. A couple points of contention.
Well, I'm wondering if if this now can if this is upheld, right, on appeal, if it can then be used as a precedent, for other states. For example, we could revisit the Ten Commandments issue here, where that was recently, a judge said, look, it's historical, it's not religious, it can stay, it's not conflicting with anything. Yeah. Well, now we have a precedent. The more these overtly religious, and the Ten Commandments monument we have here, has all these religious symbols all over it. Yeah. And they're saying it's not a religious monument. So the more precedents are set like this one,
it's another precedent, which is a good thing.
These things are coming down.
But again, they were pretty strong in the ruling to say that we're not demanding that all of them come down. We're in no way saying that Ten Commandments are not an important thing in American history.
Yeah. His was clearly intended as an evangelizing.
Exactly.
I mean, it was the first thing you see when you enter the building.
It was the only thing you see.
Yeah. I mean, boom, there it is, and.
It was solely for the purpose of proselytation on the government part.
And even if he wants to argue, well, look, this is just a monument, and the monument, no one's forced to look at it, and no one, it doesn't establish Christianity as the state religion. No, but what it does do is, you open the first thing you see, it sends a very clear message, that hey, if you agree with this, and if you follow this belief, this religion, you're favored in this building, and if you don't follow it, you're less favored in this building.
Yeah.
You don't have this equal representation under the law unless you like this monument here.
Yeah.
So unless you belong to the club. So that's clearly what the intent was. Yeah. And obviously the court saw right through it and shot him down. Okay, what else before we start going to calls?
All over it, they had all these different quotes. Laws of nature and of nature's God from the Declaration of Independence. He had these small quotes written on the side of the document, which again, they pointed out was important because all these were words of men. They cannot be on the same plane as the Word of God. And the Ten Commandments were on top, all the others were around the side.
Yeah.
In God we trust as our national motto.
Yes, sir.
So help me God.
Judiciary
Act of 1789.
Well, that was when So Help Me God was...
Context, please.
Well, is that when that phrase was entered into people having to give oaths?
Perhaps.
1789?
Perhaps. One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, wait, 1954. Okay.
Yes.
So at least he does.
Yes, he does.
The adulterated Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes, he does. He does recognize that.
I wonder if he had this one up. Here's one I like.
I don't know, Martin. Let's find out.
Yes. The Christian God can easily be pictured as virtually the same God as the many ancient gods of past civilizations. The Christian God is a three-headed monster, cruel, vengeful, and capricious. If one wishes to know more of this raging three-headed beast-like God, one only needs to look at the caliber of people who say they serve him. They are always of two classes, fools and hypocrites. Now, who do you think said that?
I don't know, but I think I've got
we have a hand up in the crowd. Louder? Okay. Yes, Thomas Jefferson. Right. Phil gets some kind of prize. We don't have anything.
Well, go get the clip.
No. You're very untransitional fossil right here.
Okay.
So, there we go.
Okay. Well, here's a counter quote for you.
Oh.
And this is another one.
It's a dueling quotes, right?
Yes, this is on the monument also.
All right.
And can the liberties of a nation be thought secure when we have removed their only firm basis, a conviction on the minds of the people that these liberties are of the gift of God, that they are not to be violated, but with his wrath? Also by Thomas Jefferson.
Taken from Notes on the State of Virginia, 116, Article 169.
169.
Now, Jefferson was a deist. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. But, I'm curious about that. I'm wondering if that's, I'll check that out, but, if that could be one of David Barton's manufactured quotes, because deists don't believe in a wrathful God, right? A deist God creates everything and then goes off and does something else. So, so that would be interesting. But still, you can throw all the quotes you like, at it, and the fact is, you go back to the source document, go back to the U.S. Constitution.
Yeah.
And it's all, okay. I don't know. I still am not sure if I would be okay with this big sprawling historical document cabinet where you had all these other documents and then the Ten Commandments in the middle of it. Because for one thing, I'd be very suspicious of the motives. It seems to me that would just be, a big thing of multiple documents would have just been a ruse to get the Ten Commandments.
Yeah, we were talking about
something
last week, something called the wedge strategy.
The wedge strategy, right? Yeah, but still. So even then I'd be skeptical of the motives of that. But here, his motives weren't even, he wasn't even pretending not to be this, evangelical guy, right?
Yeah. He's solely for the purpose of making sure that people know that there is a Judeo-Christian God.
Yeah. Well, Judge, not everybody believes in your invisible magic man. And, you putting up all the monuments in the world isn't going to prove that there is this big invisible magic man. So why don't you prove your God exists first? Do that. Prove God exists first. And then you can start making laws that will affect my life and the life of citizens, okay, based on what you think this being thinks. How about that? Good. All right. Well, it's time for phone calls, I think. We've been prattling on a while, but that's very important. So Cory's been holding very patiently on line one. Let's see what he has to say. Cory?
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Hi, you're on the air. How are you doing?
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Nice to see such display of you guys are doing work that kind of almost seems like it's a little bit in vain, but
sometimes
I always
it does.
admire the freedom of of what we get to do in America.
We're having a little volume control. Go ahead and turn the speaker down in here. We'll get Steve to adjust your volume in the control room. You're kind of faint on us, Cory.
Oh, sorry.
That's better.
That's much better.
Up or
all right.
Adjust volume.
Okay.
Okay, but
so what's your question?
Well, my question was that I was kind of wondering. This is my first time ever watched a program, and I was kind of wondering what the point was. I kind of get a little bit. I believe that religion and government should, especially the Republican Party, which I am a Republican, but I definitely think that it should be separate. I think the words have been twisted, and communication and some of the language has definitely been altered, in the past 2,000 years, and we've had some of this literature from, when religion first started popping up in the Christian sense. So,
that's interesting. You mentioned you're a Republican.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. Have you mentioned to any of your elected officials or any people in your party, like how active are you in the party, and have you had an opportunity to talk to anyone about your views of thinking, no, look, we don't need to be. We need to stick with separation. We don't need to be trying to have have religion being intrusive into a governmental practice. Have Have you, as a Republican, talked to anybody else in your party and tried to get them to, you know, tried to sound them out on where they are?
Absolutely.
And what do they tell you?
Well, it's not so much, you know, it's more about my message and what I kind of believe. So, you know, and I'll go back to the language, you know, being, you know, almost changed, and you know, there's the interpretation of language has, you know, has changed quite a bit, and I tend to stick to, you know, facts, and I believe that there are some universal facts.
Right. And, but what I'm curious about, though, is, I mean, because specifically my concern with the Republican Party is that it is close to, as much as it's been in recent memory, you know, been taken over by the religious right. And, you know, and these are the whatever your religious convictions are, I don't really particularly care. It's so much that the far right wing, you know, the people who really want to theocratize America, are trying to, are getting a grip on your party. And so I think that, you know, if there are people who are pro-separation in your party, as you claim to be, you know, is there any sort of organization there to kind of counter, you know, the Pat Robertsons and the Falwells and the Judge Roy Moores, who are trying to turn the Republican Party into the conservative white Christians, you know, Protestant fundamentalists gang, and exactly what are you guys doing to try to, you know, to you throw speed bumps in their path? I'd like to. Well,
I think that, you know, it's not necessarily speed bumps, but you know, it's just a matter of, you know, it's just a matter of growth, and I think that that it doesn't have anything to do with immediately stopping it, and it's just not going to happen like that. But as far as you know, as time, you know, goes on, and there, you know, has more compassion, I think that there's a lack of compassion with you know, the Falwell, I guess, you know, the jury, you know, Falwell,
right. But still having a little trouble hearing you there.
It's just you know, in my argument, I just think that a lot of that is just inaccurate.
And so but they're the ones you need to make that argument to, right?
Sir?
They're the ones you need to be making that argument to. You know, the fundamentalists and the members, you know, the Christian Coalition, those guys. They're the ones who need to be hearing that argument. And I'm wondering, just, are you getting that message to them?
Yeah, and you know, they're you know, I'm young. I'm 28, and you know, there will be a cycling of, you know, an age group in my generation, you know, that, you know, tend to believe that that the truths that they try to, you know, say, and you know, that they're not as accurate, and just as much as stuff that these opinions, you know, maybe come from you, aren't exactly accurate either. And that, you know, opinions are always subject to change. And a lot of this stuff is, you know, is opinionated. And
well, okay, and I get all that. I mean, conceptually, I get where you're coming from. But it's just, my concern is then that, you know, they're, you know, it's, you know, the actions now that guys like yourself and the Republican Party are taking, and you know, and I know that you can't expect to, you know, shut down the likes of Ashcroft and Roy Moore overnight. I mean, I know that that's not the thing, but since, you know, like the Christian Coalition, the far right wing, the religious right, they're organized. They're very organized, and it seems that Republicans, I guess, who are maybe, would I be correct to say, you're a little more centrist, like yourself? Maybe. Okay. Well, are not as, you know, who are pro-separation, who think that religion and government need to be separate entities, and you know, I'm wanting to see
contradiction in that. There's just, and that's my point.
Yeah, and I want to say the guys who think like you in the Republican Party need to be, you know, getting together the way the religious right is, to be, and whenever we have something like a Roy Moore or a guy trying to break down the wall, I mean, you're the guys that they're going to listen to first, it seems like, because you're in their own party. And
I probably won't ever get a chance to speak with Roy Moore. You know? And what I do now, and the ripples that I make in my lifetime, will, you know, affect the people and reflect the people around me. So, you know, I think that it's more important to rely more on and focus more on the you know, on the loving aspect of what we have here, and you know, as a unification of, you know, as a state.
Yeah, but you know, among the more aggressive far-right wingers, that's not really going to be an argument that moves them. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with, you know, everybody enjoying the loving aspect of things, and I think that that's, you know, nice philosophically. Okay, but there's a practical concern here, and that is that there are folks who have, you know, one very specific, rigid, orthodox view of how they think the country should be run under a religious banner, and obviously there are folks in other political parties and independents, you know, and groups like People for the American Way, ACLU, folks like us, you know, who are, of course, poised and ready to try to do what we can to fight, you know, the Christian right. But what I keep wanting to come back to is, it seems to me it'd be very effective. The first people that they might actually even listen to would be some sort of grassroots movement within the Republican Party from guys like yourself who think, no, the Republican Party should be, you know, a thing for all Americans. I don't want to see my party co-opted by, you know, this one group of far right-wing religious fanatics, and standing up to that. And I think that just, you know, at the grassroots is where these kinds of things can happen. And I mean, and I admire all your ideas. I admire, you know, the philosophy that you're trying to bring to it. But I'm saying, you know, you have to kind of realize that, you know, the other side isn't going to always see things eye to eye with you, and you got to be prepared to sometimes aggressively.
The other side is continually changing as well, and you know, as a generation grows closer and closer, to be in power.
Yeah.
Is so I kind of like the point, you know, your guys' point. It's just that it's very important for me to always keep an open mind that the things are always changing, and that to embrace that change.
Well, so, see, it depends. Okay, I'm not necessarily willing to embrace all change, right? I mean, because there are some changes that can be bad. Okay, America could lose, we could lose as citizens a lot of our civil liberties if a more theocratic government comes into power. Okay, now that may seem like an extreme slippery slope type of argument, but look where it happens else in the world. Keeping an open mind is I think an entirely separate issue apart from looking at what could be really beneficial for the country as a whole and what could be really harmful. And if changes are happening that aren't going to be good, you know, for most, maybe only good for a very select elite few of people, like the people that Judge Roy Moore says belong to the only real religion in America, and every other thing that calls itself as a religion is a faith. Okay, the kind of change that man wants to, you know, he wants to wreak in this country is not change that I think we should accept. So I'm just suggesting, you know, try to, you know, be a little more focus, and let's get guys like you in the Republican Party, get some grassroots movement going against the folks in your own party who are the extremists who are trying to take over, because they're the only people they're going to listen to. And we appreciate your call, but we're backed up now. We're going to go on the next guy, but just think about what we said and call us up next week. Okay?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Take care.
There's always change, and there's always going to be ebbing and flowing in, you know, who has power and what the opinions of them are and stuff like that. But if you see a change, like you were saying, that you don't agree with, try and at least steer it off into a direction that you
Germany,
like.
1933.
Yeah. And
don't like that change.
Yeah.
Where's my train ticket? No. Save the country. Save your country before it goes downhill. That's the thing. All right, we have a couple more callers waiting patiently here. Talk to Jeremy first. See what he has to say. Jeremy, you're on the air.
Hey guys, great show.
How you doing? Thank you.
Doing great. I wanted to talk about Cliff, the debater who comes to UT every year.
Oh.
He was here last week, Tuesday through Friday.
I heard about him, actually, yeah.
Yeah, and as always, he had a very sizable audience.
Well, yeah, okay.
Very interesting subjects. I attended a couple of days, and I would say, you know, a good number of students have a fair amount of cognitive dissonance regarding Christianity. And from these debates last week, I'd say a majority of the students' concerns had to do with the injustice of salvation, which is my biggest problem with Christianity.
You mean like the doctrine of hell and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, the way salvation presumably works is God punishes the wicked. And the criterion for wickedness is basically, if you don't commit yourself to Christ in this life, then you're wicked and you will burn. And one of the points that I always like to make is that if God is omnipotent, supposedly, then he has the power to change the way the salvation game is played. For example, say if you're an atheist or a Muslim and you die, then instead of automatically being condemned, God could, if he desired, he could sit down with you and answer all of your questions and give you one-on-one instruction for 500 years, if that's what it took to bring you around. But instead, God is, you know, he's a capricious, impetuous child, really. I mean, in layman's terms, in layman's terms, God is an emotional junkie. And instead of
for example, okay, a perfect being, right? Omniscient, omnipotent, omni everything, right? But a perfect being who requires worship. Okay,
Isn't that kind of trivial?
Just makes no sense, because a perfect being lacks for nothing. A perfect being wants nothing, needs nothing. You know, but this is why I often argue with Christians why, like, prayer is such a waste of time. Okay, because you're entreating a perfect being for something. A perfect being can't possibly be moved, you know, by the requests and desires of some, you know, piddly little ant, right? And even if he were, right, he would know, being omniscient, in advance that you were going to pray for him on this date about this subject, and so he's already made up his mind whether or not he's going to grant you your request, you know, by a prayer.
Your prayers are answered long before you ever make them.
So but it makes no sense that that a perfect, omniscient, omnipotent, all-powerful deity would require the worship of imperfect beings unless he was somehow emotionally immature, which would mean he was not perfect.
Right.
So,
Right, and if he knows the future, then when he created human beings, he could see the great amount of skepticism they were going to have, the great amount of doubt, and he would say to himself, man, a lot of people are going to burn if I keep the rules of the game as they are. And I don't want for that because I love them. But it doesn't work that way. It's all or none.
He went ahead and created it anyway.
Now, of course, the Christian response is, of course, well, but God just can't reveal himself to you because then that would make you a mindless robot. And he doesn't want a mindless robot. He wants you to come to him of your own free will and love him. You know, and if you don't, he'll burn you forever. But he wants you to come to him of your own free will and love him, and he wants you to, and it just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And I think that it doesn't take a whole lot of analysis to see the ways in which it just doesn't make any sense. But so, what were some of the more entertaining encounters with Cliff the Cliff the Evangelist?
Well, I know that his overall story, because I asked him, you know, how is it fair to base reward and punishment for eternity, to base that on a decision you make when there's such a lack of evidence? And his response is, he says, all the various religions claim to reveal God accurately. So what you do is you read all the various religions and study them, and you look at that evidence. And in his mind, evidence is scriptures. And
well, then how does he account for the fact that other religions have members? I mean,
they apparently haven't read all the other religions.
Wow.
So they haven't seen the
So is he claiming that at one point he was, I guess, going through a Muslim phase and a Buddhist phase? And, well, maybe, who knows? Maybe he did. You know, I mean, some guys did. I'm not saying he didn't, but that's interesting, though.
Okay, two things. One thing he said is good faith equals evidence of reliability plus a commitment on your part.
There's no evidence of reliability that I found.
That was a point I tried to make.
Faith is like the kind of the antithesis of evidence. I mean, once you have evidence for something, you don't need faith anymore.
Right. Right. If you witness Jesus perform an actual miracle, you can't doubt that he's divine. You know. And the apostles doubted having witnessed supposedly, you know, miracles.
See, the thing is, if you were to actually witness a supernatural event and then continue to deny that it happened, you'd be an idiot. Right? I mean, that's no longer healthy common sense skepticism, right? But the problem is that, you know, you ask them for this sort of direct, you know, evidence, and what do they say? Well, it all comes down to faith in the end. And then what is faith? He says it's evidence. You know, so it's this mulberry bush they run around.
Another thing with Cliff was he said that in every human being's life, the Holy Spirit is soliciting that person. And he said that if you reject the Holy Spirit enough times, you can become spiritually deaf, so to speak. So, isn't that just weird?
Well, yeah, that's
spiritually deaf now, I guess?
That's his synonym for being a critical thinker.
Yeah.
Okay. This is what to me is the creepiest thing about this whole belief system, right? Is that one of the abilities that our species has, right, that kind of puts us at the top of the whole, phylogenetic tree, right, is that we have these cognitive abilities. We can reason, okay? We can use critical thinking and we can examine the world around us and say, okay, well, this works and this doesn't, and make decisions, informed decisions. What Christianity says is, oh no, that isn't, our greatest strength. That's a liability. That makes you spiritually deaf.
Yep. The ability to think is dangerous.
Human beings, I think most precious property becomes its greatest sin. And what becomes its greatest virtue? Just believing, just faith. Belief, in and of itself becomes the greatest virtue a human being can practice.
Yeah.
And skepticism, oh well, if you think too hard about this stuff, you become spiritually deaf. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. That's
I have the website for the ministry Cliff works with, if you'd like that.
Oh, that might be fun.
Yeah.
But let's not type it up on the screen to give them too much advertising. We'll just make a note of it and check it out ourselves. Go ahead.
www.gmaa.com. I'm sorry, .org.
Org. All right.
And I think that's based in Connecticut.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have a look at that. But cool. Well, any more shenanigans? Are you part of Charles's group down at UT, or are you just?
No, I would be, except I'm taking way too many classes this semester. Yeah.
So Friday afternoon, you want to go home?
Yeah.
All right, that's cool, dude. But we appreciate hearing from you, and Jeremy and Phil. Please call the show back any time. All right.
Will do.
All right, man.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, you take care. Sorry,
No.
I thought you were gesturing, and I thought that was I have a thing to say type gesture.
No ahs or ums or epiphanies.
I'm sorry.
So next call.
Terribly sorry. Okay. Trinity is on line 3. Been holding very patiently. Hello, Trinity.
Hi.
Hi. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
We are well.
Love your show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My question has to do with something that I get in arguments all the time with my Christian friends, just for the sake of it, just for fun, and we enjoy having philosophical talks about religion and stuff. And there's one thing that I always have a hard time arguing, and that is a lot of people who believe in God say that one of the advantages of it is in times of hardship, when you feel like something's completely out of your control and it's just you want to give up, you put your faith in God, and you can kind of step back from the situation and let something else deal with it that's more powerful than you. And I was just wondering, what would be your response to that as an atheist? If you were in a situation like that, what would drive you to keep working?
If it's in the point of actually arguing and debating with people, drugs and alcohol do the same thing. And there's like problems with going down that road. Having a belief and supporting it just because it feels good and it seems like the right thing isn't necessarily the best way to go about things.
Right.
Look at, is there a basis for this? Do I have a reason to believe it? If so, then you're, maybe on the right path. But just because it makes you feel good, drugs do that.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would add to that we both recognize that one of the big appeals of religion is that there's this emotional comfort aspect to it. And that people draw emotional comfort from their religious beliefs. We understand that. For me, we actually had a Christian woman actually call and ask us a very similar question. How do you guys deal with like tragic situations? How would you deal with it if you had like a loved one in the hospital dying or something like that? And because she would fall back on her faith, and she wasn't attacking us. It was a curious question. And
yeah, that's basically my question.
Yeah. Well, first off, I would have to say that you would have to look at the situation, and when atheists, Christians always kind of ask, well, where do you draw the strength from? Like from yourself? Well, sometimes if that's all you've got, yeah, but you'll have friends, family, but in addition to that sort of direct support structure from other people, I would try to look at the situation I was in. Okay, I am in this situation, and it's not good. What do I need to do to correct the situation? And in the example that was in the last caller, the last caller asked us about like a loved one in the hospital. Okay, it would be rational to me to say, okay, I need to remain strong for this person because this person is ailing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have to be the one to take care of them. I have to be the one to talk to the doctors, talk to the hospital, talk to the insurance people. And I can't become emotionally unglued for this person's sake. So I have to be. So what is the practical result of getting me out of this situation? And where would I draw strength from? I would draw strength from the fact that if I remain on top of things, this person will be helped, and this person will be aided, and they'll get better. Right?
What if you were the one in the hospital?
Well, then I kind of wouldn't be in a situation to if I were out of it. But
yeah.
Again, at a certain point, you have to kind of accept. There's this. I mean, the reality is, look, sometimes good things happen, and sometimes bad things happen, and if you're the guy that bad things happen to, my dad has always been a very good pragmatist about this. He says, he says no one ever has any right to get depressed. Now, barring chemical, clinical depression, but nobody has a right to self-pity.
Yeah.
Nobody has a right to, just moping about and feel, if your life knocks you down and you get up and you dust yourself off and you got to keep going, what other choice do you have? You really don't.
Yeah.
And to me, I would find that if I believed in a higher power, if I believed in a loving God, it would seem to me that, and maybe this is just because I think the way I do, it would be harder for me to handle a tragic situation, because I would be constantly racked by the question why.
God, right?
Yeah, why?
What have I done?
Yeah, or
haven't done.
My child was in the plane that crashed into the Pentagon. Why did God let that happen?
Yeah.
And all those other people. Why? My family's beach house was, torn apart by a hurricane and someone was killed. Why does God let that happen? These questions would, I think, if I were a believer, would just torment me no end.
Right.
And you would end up with, what our last caller was talking about, cognitive dissonance, where you find yourself making up excuses. And we hear all kinds of them on this show, and it's like, does that really make the situation better? I don't think it does. Yeah. So, anything else?
Okay. Well, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Bye.
And take care. Call us back anytime. I just want to remind, we're hearing a lot of atheist callers today. Some good calls. This is a live show, but we have reruns on Tuesday, same time, 4:30 p.m. This channel. And for all of our atheist, agnostic, unbeliever viewers, please don't forget that website and our Bagel Shop meetings Sunday mornings. Except next Sunday, it's at First Cafeteria North Cross Mall. And of course, again, all unbelievers are invited to those gatherings. If you think you might want to meet some other unbelievers and realize that you're not alone and isolated in this cold, cruel world. So, see, that's another. You do fall back on friends and just people.
You're not alone in the world.
That's true. That's true. Even when you Phil is on one. Okay, go ahead. Take a breather. Phil?
Yes.
Hey, you're on the air. How you doing?
Good. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
How you doing?
Listen, something I saw in the paper today. I don't know if y'all scoped it out or not. In the city-state section. Either of y'all read the paper today?
I haven't seen it though, but.
Okay. In God We Trust, the post office is going to post these posters.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard about that.
It was started by a guy down in Houston. They wanted to donate these posters in the wake of 9/11 of last year. And the post office said, "Well, we got to take these down because we don't allow flyers and handbills." And then they said, wait a minute, the House of Representatives 2 years ago passed a resolution. It wasn't even both houses, just the House of Representatives. Said, oh, we can do this. So I'm thinking to myself, this is outrageous, this is ridiculous, and I can only wonder why my stamp prices are going up, and it also brings to mind a couple other jokes. I mean, what's going to happen now? You put your envelope in the post office slot, and if you
God
pray hard
we
enough,
trust.
it might just get there. Is that what's going on now? Is that what we're? Is that? And next time somebody goes postal, are we supposed to look at that little poster and go, "Well, I feel better already"?
Yeah, I know. It does bring up an interesting philosophical quandary, right? I mean, who do you trust more, God or the post office? Right? I mean, one is just about as reliable as the other. Although, not to attack our fine, heavily armed postal workers.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the post office a government agency, or at least I know it was semi-privatized?
Yes,
is it actually a government agency, or was it privatized?
It was partially privatized, but it's still under the charter of the Congress.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't think they get any. They don't get private money to do what they do. I mean,
They had to go.
What, the post office? I'm being told the post office doesn't get any government money. Well, I mean, it's supported by, you know, itself.
But is it a government institution?
Yeah, but it is a government institution,
okay.
right? But it's supported by all of us who pay them to, you know, to lose our mail.
Yeah, if the post office gets shot, that's a federal offense because they're federal employees.
Yeah, well, we'll see. It'll be interesting. I'm going to see what, like, how the individual local post offices have it. I mean, first off, is this going to be a gigantic, like, 50 by 20? Is it going to be like a banner this size saying "In God We Trust" on it? Is it going to be like one little poster lost in there
in the back room?
All the Bugs Bunny stamps and what have you. I mean, if it's going to be, you know, I guess it comes to the point where you got to pick your fights, and I think that you might disagree with me, and other atheists might disagree with me. I think that, for example, something like the Ten Commandments monument in the Judicial Building and things like that are more important than, than say something like a poster. And you could say fundamentally they're not really any different, but one, I think, is being done out. I mean, there is a definite threat to government and religion separation in the case of in the case of Judge Roy Moore and the Ten Commandments monument. Whereas what you would have in, say, the "In God We Trust" posters, somebody could just say, "Oh, well, it's our national motto. It's not really a religious thing because, you know, God can mean anything to anybody, and you know, you can find some Unitarian Universalist with some deistic concept of God." Whereas you have something that's overt, like Judge Roy Moore basically saying Christians are religious, nobody else is. This is favored. My God created all the laws anyway. So when you have something that's like that blatant and that much of an attack upon religious freedom, I think it's more important to go after, like, fight the big fights. Let the little ones kind of, you know, fall. You know, the little ones will take care of themselves, I think, if the big ones are won. I don't know. Some other atheists might disagree with me on that.
You know, in deference to that, it seems to me, you know, I'm never going to step foot in that courthouse in Alabama.
Yeah, well,
in all likelihood, a lot of folks are going to step on these one of 38,000 post offices, folks.
Yeah.
So, you know, you may want to pick your battles, but that seems pretty big to me.
Well, you know, I think, you know, the post office is already kind of, you know, I guess there are a few things that have been hurting them, which is why they've been raising all the postal rates. But, you know, I mean, with email, with electronic billing, you know, the post office is finding itself kind of, you know, boat anchor technology, and so, you know, it seems to me that I don't go there as nearly as I used to. I mean, I go now once a week to check my P.O. box. I used to go every day, right? Because I live business, and just the stuff was coming all the time. And now it's like when I correspond with my friends, often, you know, other parts of the world, it's email. When when I mail order something, you know, I'll online
over the internet,
over the internet, and then it's usually like a UPS delivery or a to the door thing, or sometimes depending on. But yeah, so it's like. But again, I don't think that fight the big fights. So you know, settle those, and the little ones will take care of themselves. You know, I mean, do you want to be just going after, you know, everybody who has a bumper sticker or everything that looks like? No, I mean, just do where you know, fight the fights where they matter, I think. But anyway, thanks for your input.
All right, guys.
We'll talk to you later.
Hey, Sean.
So, no, what do you think? Am I full of it? Should we go after those doggone post office?
Well, I think the post office is definitely one of the smaller ones. Roy Moore definitely kind of took the cake. With this one. Yeah, I mean, I think it is important, but again, it picking your battles.
I mean, we could always reassign Roy Moore to be like the Postmaster General in Alabama, and that just seems kind of that would fit him.
But, there you go.
Yeah, but no, I don't think, you know, any of us want to step in that courthaus in Alabama anytime soon.
I know that it would be frightening to say, my God, I have to go to court.
It is Alabama, right? We don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, it would be kind of scary to know I have to go to court there.
Oh, well. Well, anyway, Juan is online, too. Let's see what he has to say. Hi, you're on the air.
Hi, guys. How you doing?
Hey. We're doing fine. What's going on?
Just 3 quick items that I wanted to mention. Because I've been watching the program from the very beginning. And the first item is this. The phrase Judeo-Christian God seems to convey the idea that to both those groups there is only one God that is the same. But when you speak to the Jews, when you speak to Jewish people, they definitely have a completely different idea of who their God is. First of all, their God did not inseminate artificially a woman on earth to have a child. So it can't
one little sticking point, yeah.
It can't be the same God. Let's remember in history, in the Middle Ages, in Spain specifically, during the Inquisition, the Christians invented a very, very entertaining sport of executing Jews right and left, especially those that had loaned them money to run their, little monarchies.
It's a good way not to have to pay the guy back.
Because the Jews in history were prohibited from having property, the Romans prohibited them from having property. They had to learn how to store value in different ways other than real estate, which was, jewelry, for one, and money. They were the ones with cash. They had the cash flow, and the other guys had the real estate, but they needed the currency, the exchange. So they needed the Jews, but when they didn't want to pay them, they just executed them because they had denied, and they had helped the Romans kill Jesus to begin with. So my point is, when the phrase is thrown, Judeo-Christian God, I think it's a little bit incorrect to think that there is one God for both of them.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. Glad you brought that up.
Yeah, definitely there isn't that. But the Christians seem to form an alliance today. They say, "Oh, it is the same God as the Jew," but the Jews say, "Well, no, it's not."
And they say the same thing about They say the same thing about Allah. Some of them, right? I mean, one of the characteristics of religious fundamentalists, right, is that they like to be able to say what it is that other groups believe. They want to dictate. What it is that other groups who oppose them think. Absolutely. Because it's easier to make, set up straw man arguments and just shoot your opponent down. And you tell them, we've had Christians call the show all the time trying to tell us what atheism is. And it's just sort of like, we think we know a thing or two more about it. Let us if you want to know what we think about stuff as atheists, ask us. We'll tell you. But we hear that all the time. And so it wouldn't surprise me that the same people who are out there saying, the Lord God does not hear the prayers of a Jew, is in the same breath saying, but Jews worship the same God as we do. I mean, that would just kind of be the way that they would handle that.
Right. The second thing that I wanted to mention was, when you corner deists, and they have no more arguments, they always come to this standard answer. And you hear it from every pastor of every church. When they are cornered and they're out of arguments, they say, God never meant for us to know everything. Which means they say that, look, we're helpless. We cannot know what God is all about. We're not supposed to know everything. So shut up and just deal with this part that we do know. So in a sense, they come to the same conclusions as atheists. When atheists are asked, well, what are we doing here? Where does this all come from, et cetera, et cetera? Well, we honestly say, we don't know, but we're using logic and reasoning to find out.
But saying we don't know doesn't mean we don't think we're meant to know. I mean,
right.
There's no.
We're not limiting our knowledge. We're opening the door.
We don't know, but with different reasoning, of course. They say we don't know. Shut up and don't look more. But we say we are looking for an answer. And we can live with the we don't know momentarily while our leading scientists are finding out more. Which leads me to the third item, and I leave you with this.
Okay.
Why is it? It's very suspicious the fact that the leading scientists, such as Einstein, astronomers such as Carl Sagan, and many other leading scientists are totally mute on the issue of whether there is a God or not.
Well, they're not totally mute. I mean, Einstein had ideas about religion. They're very easily misunderstood. There's a quote that he made about God not playing dice with the universe that Christians immediately latch onto and say, see, even Einstein, believed in God. And then Einstein came back and said, well, no, I don't mean a personal God. When I use the term God, I'm referring to my awe at the natural universe. Carl Sagan, on the other hand, was Isaac Asimov, guys like him. They were unapologetically atheist. And there are some other scientists like Stephen Jay Gould, who was an unbeliever, but he is one of these guys who thinks that it's kind of possible for science to make nice with religion.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting segue, because I'm not going to talk about this episode. Unfortunately, I don't have time. But next week on the show, we're going to get into this. This is a new issue of Wired magazine, and there are a bunch of these articles in here now trying to draw this parallel. They're essentially trying to make the claim. The general gist of I think this is a feature, and there's about 4 articles in the overall feature, that there is this movement within science to validate religion. And I've just read one of the articles right now, and the author is making, in one of the articles, is just making all of these insane assumptions that are completely groundless, but he just makes them and assumes that they're true. And I'm going to be critiquing this very hard on next week's show. But there is religious fundamentalists, on the one hand, tend to deplore science, because whenever science tends to support stuff like evolution and things that they don't like and things that they consider a threat to the primacy of their religious faith, well, they come down and say, oh, well, science is just, some other kind of religion, and it's no better than ours, blah, 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 blah. But at the same time, they recognize in science there is this agent of, respectability, right? So, and they realize that for their arguments to have any weight, they at least have to sound scientific.
Yeah.
So you will read all of this amusing, like creationist and other sort of fundamentalist literature where they, like the Bible Code guys will try to do this. Like there's one guy who's always like, this proves scientifically that the Bible was the Word of God. Clearly not knowing what the phrase "prove scientifically" even means, and and thinking that if he just keeps saying the words "prove scientifically," that he means that. Yeah. All you have to do is keep saying scientifically this and scientifically that, and that makes what he's doing scientific.
Yeah,
so
I can't remember exactly where it came from, but I know this was brought up a while ago. Again, going back to the wedge strategy type thing, trying to teach intelligent design or some form of creation in schools.
Yeah.
And they were saying, basically, it was teacher lessons that were on the internet for this. And what they had is, when you're discussing this, on that day, make sure you wear a white, a white coat, like the scientists wear. That way you'll look like a scientist. It means absolutely nothing in terms of what you're actually arguing, but if you wear that coat, you're a scientist then.
I'm not an idiot.
If only it were that easy. If only it were that easy.
Yeah, I don't know. It is pretty, so it's funny. I mean, on the one hand, they don't like science, but they realize that when it suits them, they need to embrace it, or at least pretend to embrace it.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be another ongoing fight still.
Can I leave you with just one statement?
Yeah, go right ahead, and then we're going to go on our next guy.
It is my impression, in general, that the leading scientists do not embrace the battle against deism, and they let other people, such as, the ACA, do the dirty work for them, because somehow they don't want to be unpopular. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's not necessarily, that's not really fair. I mean, when there have been in many states now, like I think most recently there's Hawaii, New Mexico, where these battles for school board battles for let's get creationism in biology class have taken place, right? The National Academy of Science. And there's an organization, and I'll put the next week on the show. I'll have the website for this organization. But there are these scientific organizations out there that get out there and they fight these school board battles, and they bring experts in the field, biology, paleontology, to get out there and talk to these school boards and explain to them, okay, here's what science is, here's how it works. These are the problems with intelligent design from a scientific perspective, and so there are people in the scientific, and they're not just leaving it all up to atheist groups. Very recently, just a quick example, a skeptics conference recently, and these are people from all different scientific disciplines, but they had they invited 2 creationists, like William Dembski and another guy, I think Nelson, to come and present intelligent design, and there were 2 scientists out there to rebut them, right? But these particular guys, so for one thing, there's a skeptics conference doing something that's like the Institute for Creation Research would never do.
Yeah.
Allow a pro-evolution point of view into their turf.
Yeah.
But they had guys, the scientists, the biologists who were opposing the intelligent design guys, Dembski and the other guy. One of them was a Catholic, and the other one was kind of like some Jesuit, right? So immediately this was a way of saying, look, being pro-science doesn't automatically mean atheist.
Yeah.
And and the ID crew were not able to immediately defend themselves in a very cheap way by saying, oh, well, see, look, they're just putting all these godless atheists up against us, and and it becomes
as if that would validate.
And it becomes a battle of religious ideology versus what does science actually say.
Yeah.
So I think the scientific community is snapping, and they're getting better about like fighting these things properly. But we gotta let you go, but we appreciate your points.
Thank you very much.
Very interesting points, and thanks for your call.
Thanks, Sean.
Okay. It kind of went on a while, but when the callers are good, we want to talk to them. Robert, I think, is still holding on line 1. Well, no, line 3 is winked out. So Robert's on 1. Robert, thanks for holding. You're on the air.
Hey, thanks, Martin. I don't know. I met you at the post office one time. How you doing?
I'm okay. Oh, you were that guy.
Yeah. I was going to comment on some ideas that the last caller had talked about, and I was wondering what you guys thought about the idea of fag bashers unite, fag bashers unite, fag bashers unite.
Well,
that kind of sums it up.
Yeah, that pretty much. Yeah, I mean. Yeah, how does somebody feel about you? I mean, we don't need to answer that question. You did our work for us. Okay. See, this is, what do we get? Okay, all right. Well, I think that kind of wraps up the show. I'm going to say a couple of things.
Okay.
About this here. Doop-de-doop-de-doo. Yeah. Yeah, see, here's this issue of Wired, right? I mean, here the little blurb that appears on the cover. Science gets religion. Okay. I'm going to mention a couple things about this too. Okay, when I talked about assumptions this guy's making, right? Well, he says things like he talks about how there's this increasing reconciliation between science and religion and like implying that this is a big movement going on right now, and I don't know anything about it. I mean, it's not appearing on any of the any of the major like nature.org, nature.com. Any of the major scientific websites, aren't, saying, oh, well, we've just been talking to theologians all week and it's wonderful. But he says things like, well, here's one. Okay. Talking about the Big Bang, right? Okay. Now, now this is an area of a lot of speculation in science, right? But the writer of this article, a guy named Greg Easterbrook, the point that he doesn't make is he doesn't draw a very important distinction where, like here he says, okay, he's talking to Alan Guth of MIT, a scientist. We're talking about. He says, suffice it to say that Alan Guth says, well, I don't know, what could have caused the Big Bang. Suffice to say that while Guth asserts science will eventually figure out the cause of the Big Bang, he still evokes unknown physical laws in the prior condition. And no matter how you slice it, calling on unknown physical laws sounds awfully lot like appealing to the supernatural. Well, no, it doesn't. What it sounds like is saying there's unknown physical laws at work. There's stuff going on, and we don't know what it is yet.
Let's try and find out.
Okay, but what he's trying to do is draw this parallel by saying, oh, well, they're just kind of playing their own little version of God of the Gaps. Yeah. And that's no better than ours, so why don't we just call the God of the Gaps God, because that's more appealing than just calling it an unknown thing. Seems to be, he says kind of the same, there's the same thing right here. While cosmology seems more and more to have a miraculous aspect, the scientifically approved alternatives require an article of faith. Yeah, but not like dogmatic, right? Okay, certainly science is about speculation.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, a lot of scientific theories and hypotheses, speculation goes on all throughout science, right? But what the difference between that process and what religion does is religion takes its article of faith and says, you must believe this and you may never question it.
Yeah.
And this is how the rule will be for all eternity. And nothing can change it. No other evidence can come along and change this thing we're telling you to believe now.
Yeah.
Whereas science does say that.
Yeah.
See, but I'm gonna read these articles in depth, and I'm gonna really ream them next Sunday because that's gonna be a lot of fun. But again, this assumption that we can reconcile. I don't think there can really be a reconciliation between science and religion. But that's just my personal point of view. Maybe that can be the topic of next week's show. Can science and religion ever see eye to eye on stuff? I don't know that they can. But be thinking about that, and have a nice day. Some cool websites. Thanks to our massive crew who showed up and
good turnout.
Most of them actually turned out to be a studio audience, but we appreciate it. Thank you. Let's send a shout out to them because I kind of snapped at them before the show came on. I was like, wait a minute. So I do that all the time. I'm a mean guy. Thanks a lot, and atheist unbelievers, you'll remember our bagel shop meetings and first cafeteria meetings. And there go our love rings out to Austin. Thank you for watching. We'll be here next Sunday, 4:30 p.m. Nonprofit Saturday, 2 p.m. Christians, we don't hate you. We just think you're wrong. Bye-bye.
Everybody have a good weekend.